Hi everyone, welcome to our I think 17th episode of this Women's Month special. So my name is Julia Mtsweni. I am the Deputy President of SASCO, and today I will be heading and of course facilitating today's episode. So today's episode is actually something quite close to my heart. It relates, of course, under gender equity and equality, and also it's centered around IR, which is international relations. Now, today's episode, we try to find a balance in trying to understand that as women in different aspects of life, different fields of study, different professions, if there's one thing that unites us is that we more or less face the same challenges regardless of where we are in any part of the country, any part of the world. So we came up with the concept to say that, look, let us invite a few young women from different scopes of life, different parts of the world. So we came about with our few guests. They'll be introducing themselves. Of course, I'll give them that point of view because, hey, who better? They know themselves better than I do. And I think it will be a nice feeling to understand from their own point of view who they are and what they stand for. So our first, of course, will be Selma from Norway, and of course Chia from China, and Tasme from Palestine. I'm so sorry if I pronounce your names wrong, guys, or else I'll end up calling you Mtase. You know, in South Africa, we call each other Mtase, which means like my sister. So if I pronounce your names wrong, I'm very sorry. So Selma, how about you introduce yourself to our viewers and who you are, where you're from, and of course, who you are.
Yes, thank you so much. It's very nice to be with you and be here. So my name is Selma. As you already said, I'm the president of SAI, the Norwegian Students and Academics International Assistance Fund. We're an organization with a very long name, but we are a solidarity and aid organization that was started by Norwegian students and academics back in the 60s, in 1961. Because students and academics in Norway wanted to show solidarity with students and academics across the world. So we've been working since the 60s with access to higher education internationally for inclusive higher education, and also with the protection of the rights of students and academics and for academic freedom. Yes, and I've been the president here for a year now, and also sat as one of the vice presidents for 2 years before that. So I've been here for a little while now. But that's
And you're doing good.
thank you.
Okay. Chia?
Hello, my name is
Yeah,
Chaoying. Oh, am I audible?
sure, you're audible. I can hear you.
Okay. So my name is Chaoying, and I know it might be a little bit hard for foreigners to pronounce my name. So I got my name in English version, Sonia. So the pronunciation like sounds similar. So you can just call me Sonia. And I'm from the economic and commercial section of the Embassy of China in South Africa. So my job is a diplomat who is facilitating and promoting the economic and commercial cooperation between China and South Africa. Yeah. So that's basically my introduction. Yeah.
Hmm. And
Thank you.
then Tasme, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it properly. I'm very sorry.
No worries at all. My name is Tasami.
Oh,
It should
Tasame.
be written with an I, but that's my
Oh.
first grade English teacher mistake, not mine. Anyway, I'm from the West Bank in Palestine. I'm 26 years old. I'm a member of Fatah Youth Movement, and today was really tough here in the West Bank. The escalation is going like up really quickly. We're the youth organization of a political party here in Palestine, so we get involved uh, a lot with the political situation here in Palestine. So today we had a lot of work to do, and I'm really happy for this chance to be here with you, like with all of these like amazing women in this day. So thank you for having me.
No, the pleasure's all ours. And look, we are honored to have you here, knowing the circumstances that you live in every single day. It is a privilege to actually have you here because, look, I could not imagine what you go through every day and the difficulty it had to take for you to be here today. So thank you so much. And thank you for everyone, of course, for being here today. So I did share the topic, but I'm not going to be too rigid on the topic because I feel like we would be too academic. I would want the conversation to flow so that we have different perspectives from different cultural back views from different countries and different, understandings on how things are done in the different countries that you're from. So I'm Julia from South Africa, number one. So recently we celebrated 30 years of democracy, which is a milestone for us. We are a country where we suffered oppression, a country where women could not vote, women could not sit on the table with decisions are done. A country where we still have a lot of gender-based violence, a country where we don't some young women don't have opportunities to even go to access to get education. So, Salma, I would like to pose a question to you. When I did my research on Norway, we figured that Norway is known as the haven of gender equity. You are known as being top five, where women actually are on the same spectrum, having equal pay, where women are not really, they don't really have those challenges. Now, in our experience, is that we have one of the best constitutions in my country, one of the best policies, but some women would feel like it's all just in paper and we don't realize it. We don't live it. You understand? So, from your perspective as a young woman in Norway, do you see it from what we read? Do you live it? Do you realize it? Are you a young woman who's actually benefiting from these policies and being known as a country of equity? And also, how did you get it right? How did you arrive to that?
That's a big question, the last part there. But I think what you're describing is correct in many ways. I think, at least compared to many other countries, we are doing very well when it comes to gender equality. There are a lot less differences when it comes to salary and pay, and so on. But when that's said, we do still have challenges. For example, there's still gender-based violence happening in Norway, and femicides as well, even though it's less than in many other countries. And I realize I should have looked up the concrete numbers before this, but
No worries. No
but
worries.
when you look at when you look at pay and salary, like uh, even though yeah, it is a lot more equal. On a general level, women still earn less, and women invest less, for example. So we do definitely still have issues here as well. When it comes to me personally, I haven't experienced like any big challenges when it comes to being like a young female leader, for example. But I think that also comes down to kind of the sector that I'm in, and
Yeah.
in these kind of similar organizations. I have a lot of really great female leaders before me in this organization, and today I also have a lot of great young female leaders around me in other similar organizations. So I feel like I have a lot of good female leaders to lean on and discuss with in my network, and that really helps. So I think it's a lot more difficult if you're in a more male dominated sector, for example.
Mm. No, I think I can take that from you, because I think for you to succeed as a young woman, you can't do it alone. You need your tribe of women, you need your network, you need your support structure. I think that's why we lean on the saying in most cases that when a door opens for you, you can't just walk alone. You need to take 10 other women with you to support you, to give you strength, so that when the door opens for them as well, they take 10 more other women for them. I think that's how we can achieve actually working together, how to strengthen one another as women. Yeah, I think more or less that's what I'm getting from you, that you need a support structure as a woman. You need a network of, maybe let's say our own hive, of women protectors around us. And especially when I checked your structure, it has a good history of women leading it as well. Something that we need to actually try and change in my own country, where we start supporting more women to be presidents, chairpersons. So yeah, I think that's what I'm getting mostly from you. And then Sonia, I wanted to pose a question on your side, just around democracy as well, because my opening statement will be on democracy. Is that we generally have a view of the Chinese society, of being a society that is more, it's a bit rigid, it's a bit strict. You have this traditional element of discipline. And being a young woman in my own country as well, I'll give you this, that there are some women who have traditional sentiments on how to lead, to think that it is only it's supposed to be men who must drive the development. It's supposed to be men who actually need to chant their way into empowerment. It's supposed to be men who must lead, and women are on the backward. And we see this on how we are raised also as young women by our aunts, our mothers, our grandmothers in backward times, where a woman has to be in a specific way, a respectful way towards a man. Now, my question is that when we have a view of the Chinese culture, we see it as this women who are always obedient. Now, the stigma around being with power is often structural. So I wanted to get from your own point of view, being from a person from a country that is so a bit conservative. How have you been able to lead as a young woman despite the cultural and traditional barriers that may be enforced on you? I'm speaking also personally as a young woman who has been taught that, look, a woman is raised to be respectful towards a man. How have you been able to break those barriers?
Yes, actually, so first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to be a part of this conversation, because I already learned something from Selma's talking about how the situation is like in Norway, and how she admires the leadership, the female leadership before her. So, as for the questions you just mentioned, I think it's kind of a stereotype thing. So actually, if you go to China this year, you will see a different China as you thought it would be. And for the cultural barriers, I would like to share some traditional myths with you. Like in China, back in the old days, people believed that the sky was broken, so that the water can draw into rains. And there are so many animals and plants were flooded and died because of the huge rain, the floods. And there's a female god called Nuwa in China. she was the one to fill up the sky and make everything alive again. So actually, we can see more women power through the Chinese traditional culture, as well as I think Mulan may be more famous in among you guys. You know, it's a female general, and she represents his brother to go to the war and also win the war for his father. So I think if you truly go through the Chinese history, you can see female power and women empowerment everywhere. And also for the modern Chinese history, from my department, the MOFCOM, Ministry of Commerce, when China entered into WTO, the Minister of Commerce is actually a lady. So I think we Chinese women right now are also built up to how to say contribute to more things than before. And I did a little bit homework, and I would like to share with you about some of the members. So in recent years, Chinese women's participation in economic development has become more in depth. Because I'm from the economic section, so I will share with you the numbers in this regard. In 2022, the proportion of women in China's total employment remains stable at more than 40%. And also the proportion of women in the leadership teams of provincial, municipal, and county government departments exceed 50%. And the portion of women in corporate employee directors is nearly 40%. So, and also at the just concluded Paris Olympics, I don't know whether you watch it or not, but I was kind of a sports fan, so I followed every episode. And the number of medals won or participated in by Chinese women accounted for more than half of the total number of medals won by the Chinese delegation. So this is actually, we have an old saying that women can hold up half the sky. So I think all these numbers and also the examples I just mentioned all presents or shows the old saying can also work in today's background. So that's basically about what I want to share, and I hope that answers your question.
No, 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 greatly, greatly so. Because I would like to even give you an interesting fact, actually. On my recent trip to China, we went to I think it's more of like a museum, but more of an exhibition house of one of your former leaders. I think her name is Shung Xing Ling. She's one of the she was attending the founding ceremony of the People's Republic of China, and then we went through her documentation, her history, and we discovered that she's actually the person who inspired Commander Mao. So it was actually inspiring to find out that one of the biggest philosophers from the Chinese people, it was actually a woman. So it is good that you shared that information, because so that even in our most conservative part of the world, we have to respect and appreciate that even the softest of women can be the greatest of leaders. As you say, that women are the ones who hold up the sky. Without women, literally, there will be no direction. So, Tasme, I would like to give my question on this platform to you in this fashion. It would be a bit sensitive, and I would apologize. And it's up to you if you would want to take this question. But I think that it would be important for people to actually understand where you're coming from, especially with the circumstances that you are undergoing on a daily basis. Um, Democracy being my let me say breaker, my icebreaker. Um, for me, I feel like literally there is no democracy for the people of Palestine. And from my point, I would want you to probably give us an understanding on how has democracy of this free world that we try to advocate failed the young woman, the old and women of Palestine? Because we cannot be saying that the world is free. We're in 2024. We are modern, but we still have one country in the world that is still oppressed, one country in the world that literally every single day you go through oppression, every single day someone dies, every single day people are burying someone. You understand? So, from your point of view, I would want you to explain to us or speak to viewers as a young woman, how has democracy failed the people of Palestine?
Uh, well, that's a tough one. To be honest, I don't think that we've known freedom or democracy in Palestine, and I think that our experience in the past 10 or 11 months has proven to us that democracy and freedom in the world are a lie when it's related to the rights of the weak people or the rights of the victims. They're tools that are being used in the world to not to give justice to the ones who deserve it, but to take the rights from the ones who deserve it and who own it, to serve the powerful ones, not the victims or the weak ones. So I don't feel as a Palestinian woman that I've experienced freedom and democracy in Palestine. And you know, this is for as a first reason, this is because of the occupation, of course, because of the situation I was born into here in Palestine. uh, but it's for me it's really ironic that we've never experienced it, but at the same time it's all that we aim for, it's all that we want to have. People like people are always calling for freedom here in Palestine. People are always trying to participate in any small democratic uh life or procedure they could get involved in, because they miss this in their life, and these are like two very important basic rights and values that anyone should be able to have. So with the situation here, I don't know if you know this, but we haven't had elections in Palestine for like more than, I would say, like 17, 16 years now. I can't remember exactly, it's been too long. So people my age, people who are older than me, they never got to choose who's representing them, what it's like to be going through a democratic procedure, what is it like to vote for someone. So all of this is actually, I would blame it on the Israeli occupation that we're still suffering from till today. But at the same time, I feel like as women, we also have our challenges in Palestine when it comes to the limits and the restrictions on the Palestinian women, also because of the occupation. So if you're trying to uh, study at a university in a different city than the one your family is living in, this could be a dangerous decision. This sometimes could not be accepted by your family for security reasons, because there's no guarantee that you would be able to live safely in another city without getting harassed or on the way to that city, or getting harassed in an intrusion in the city there if you're alone at your flat without any of your family around you. And this is all because of the occupation, because we have no freedom of movement in Palestine. We have to go through checkpoints. Girls and women are being humiliated. We've seen many reports of many awful and awful like acts that they've committed against our women here in Palestine. So for us, I feel like democracy and freedom are a dream when it comes to having them in Palestine. But if you would say that we live in a free democratic world, I wouldn't think so.
Yo, yeah. It's quite funny how we take little things for granted, like walking freely. To think that walking is something that you're not even privileged to have in certain parts of the world. And I think it's something that we, at some point, yo, I don't even know how to actually summarize what you just said, because being someone who's from a country also that went through apartheid and oppression and all of that, I can really appreciate it, because even after you've attained democracy, there are still those, those remnants of the feeling of apartheid, the separateness. It takes time. So we can all actually relate to what you're going through. And honestly, you will get democracy one day, and it will be very soon, because we will not stop speaking about what's happening in Palestine. We'll still fight for the people of Palestine, and we can guarantee you that one day you'll be able to walk free, you'll be able to go work wherever you want to work, and as a young woman, you will not be oppressed. So yeah, I'm too emotional to even summarize this part, but really appreciate that part from you. So my second part of our talk is that if you read there, it's called Tintswalo's perspective. So Tintswalo is actually a name and more like an analogy that the president used to show the face of democracy, being a young child who has been a beneficiary of the democracy of South Africa, going through basic care, going through secondary education, tertiary, and then going into the marketplace. Now, I had a discussion once with the Speaker of Parliament where we were actually debating to say, look, why are people not voting for liberation movements anymore? Because literally we have given them democracy, we have given them this, we've given them that. And then she reminded me of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, to say that, Julia, look, we have given you one, two, three, four, five. And the moment you leave tertiary, you have another challenge, which is finding a job, getting a house, you understand, maintaining your mental health wherever you are working. Are you providing these basic components? And if you're not, people will not vote for you. Now it goes to my second part. Selma, I would like to give it to you in this spectrum that, look, when I look at Africa, we've got 1,400 universities. In those universities, only 41 women are leading as vice chancellors. In South Africa, we have 26 universities, and if I'm not mistaken, 6 or 7 are women leading these universities. Now, being someone who's in the sector, just like me, would you think that what more can be done? Because look, when I go into university, council, it's men, senate, it's men, vice chancellors is men. They've made this environment so male dominated that our views as women do not find a way in. And if you look at the attacks in our institution of higher learning, it's attacks on females because they would want to scoundrel the women out. So this sector becomes a male dominated sector. Now, as someone who is an advocate and someone who's in the sector, what do you think the remedy would be for us as women to entrench into the sector? Because remember, this sector is a sector that builds society, a society where half of it is women. Now, this sector has to actually have another half that is women. So, what do you think we should do as young women?
Yes. Now, I think the picture looks quite different in Norway. Here, the gender balance is actually a lot more balanced, and actually, I think there's more women in higher education than men actually, and also. I don't have the exact numbers on the leadership level, but we do also have quite a significant number of like female rectors, for example. The university, like the national university board with the like with all the rectors from the different universities and university colleges in Norway, the leader there is a female, for example. So I think the picture looks quite different in Norway, and we've actually had a lot of discussions lately in the Norwegian society about about men and how men or a lot more men, a quite high number of men fall out of high school, for example, and have to drop out of high school for different reasons. So so that's yeah, I think that both the situation and the discussion looks a bit different in Norway, but with that said, I think like you talked about earlier, that that women, or you can't walk alone, like you have
Yeah,
to bring like
definitely you
other
can't.
women with you. I think that's a very good point. And we've had um, the public debate culture in Norway has been quite harsh, and there's been like people who speak publicly have met quite harsh like comments and critique and harassment, and um, and there's been done studies that show that um, like it's harsh in general, but women experience it more, and if you're a woman and from a minority background, then it's even worse. So so I think um, of course that's something that has to be kind of dealt with, and we need to, like as a society, need to kind of crack down on that when that happens, and yeah, talk to each other and say like, hey, that's not okay to talk like that. But I think it's also really important with those women, especially, who actually, despite like the critique and harassment that you can meet in public, that you actually take the word and speak your mind, and
Yeah.
I think that was a bit off track, but I think it's the same in higher education, that we need a system in place, but also need kind of good role models who take place and go in the forefront. And then of course we need to secure that on a global level. We need to secure that women get into primary education, and that that they don't have to go and work to earn money for their family, and that women are also able to get into higher education. Yeah, because if it kind of stops lower down, then we also lose the women in higher education.
No, I hear you. I would get the sense that, look, if we don't have a lot of women who would find a tribe again in academia, where when we see an attack on a female, we would have to stand by the female and stop making it more of a political gesture, but then it has to be something in practice. And also, of course, I think I understand the point that, look, there needs to be also a policy in higher education, perhaps in countries where you would find that the face of academia, let's say for instance, is male dominated. Perhaps there should be some sort of policy that says, hey, look, 50-50, we need to have 50 Senate members who 50% of the face must be female, vice chancellors, chancellors, 50% female, so that we actually have an even voice at the table. No, I think I've got a good press. Did you
Can
have
I
an after
add, if I
like a
can
light?
add one thing? Because I think also tuition fees is a big issue.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
I know I know the South African student movement has been very active against tuition fees, and
Not
it's also
for
been yes, and it's also been a big issue in Norway this past year. Higher education is free in Norway and has been free for everyone, and now our government decided to introduce tuition fees for international students from outside of the EU.
mm,
So and I know, like, on a global level, tuition fees is a big issue, and it's a problem, and um,
exclusion.
I think it's an issue especially for women, because when a family has to choose, like, who should we send to higher education, we only
We take the
have
boy.
the money to send one,
Yeah.
then it's very often the son,
Mhm.
and not the daughter.
Yeah. You know, I see Sonia is nodding her head, and I see you're agreeing that in some families, the boy child would take perspective, like the preference to say, this is the boy, let him go get the education, let him go come back and feed the family because he is the man of the house. Now, Sonia, being a young woman, your profile is around economics. I will tell you one thing, friend. I hate economics. I find it so difficult. Yeah. Everyone who knows me knows how much I hate economics. But being a young woman in such a field, listening to what Salma has just said, that look, matters like exclusion prevent women from studying further, being competitive, you understand, in the world of economics, being competitive to getting jobs. How's it different for you in China? I'm looking at you, you're very young, and you seem very accomplished in this field. How's it different, and how's it been in before times as it is now in modern times?
I'm nodding because I think the situation is kind of universal in terms of the education, like between the girls and boys in the same family, and especially for China's rural areas. They are, I think they are kind of more biased in this regard. That's why we have a, a role model female principal. She established a girl high school, like only open for girls in the mountain area in Yunnan province, I think. Yeah, and she helped many girls who should have been dropped out of school in their 15s or 16s. But she tried very hard to get the fundings from enterprises and from the organizations, and then she helped. I think the number can reach hundreds of girls to go out of the mountains to go to the cities and study, and then I think she literally changed many lives of the girls in the rural area. And I think she also inspired many people in China to devote themselves into similar courses. And as for me, yes, I'm kind of young. I'm 27 years this year. So I was born in 1997, and yeah, this year I'm 27. Back then, when I was a student, I feel like actually girls among my classmates are more smart or smarter. No offense, but just from my perspective, are smarter than the um, male classmates. Yeah, but
They know
possibly
it. They know it as well. They know it as well.
I just want to say, like, no offense. And when we get out of school and faced with the competition to fight for a job, we can see because of women need to give birth to babies. So like we have to leave our job for at least 1 years.
Mm,
You cannot devote all yourself into the job. So I think here's a physical obstruction for women in the job competition. And
Mm.
also, I think here is um, when the social guarantee system or can come in to help female colleagues to improve their competitivities. I mean, we can change some of the social guarantee rules and to achieve this. But right now, yes, we are still facing these kind of challenges in China, and I don't know whether this is also a universal thing.
I think it's more of a universal thing. I believe it. Look, in more rural parts, villages, you understand, if there is money, they would send the boy because look, the boy is believed to be a caretaker. They need to come back and take care of the child. Now, making the young girl stay at home, she must then be bred or groomed how to be a wife, how to be a housewife, and then she must marry into a good family. And if you are privileged enough or you are fortunate enough to go get an education, you are taught that first you must get your education and then you must get married to, still goes back to those societal views, get married to someone in a good family. Then when you're working, there's you get pregnant, you have a family, which you need to go to maternity. Another issue that takes you away from work. You understand? And it's very competitive now where young women are saying, look, I'm gonna stop, I'm going to put the marriage and having children first in a hold. Let me build my career. And it's unfair because men don't have that option. They just go out there, they go to school, they go get a career. Was for us, we need to now level what's more important, the family or the career. And it's a universal matter. When I'm looking at this, it seems like it's every woman, it's everywhere. And it's something that we need to really break at some point. I think there's something that we need to put for men as well. Men can't have it this easy anymore. Tasme, I actually want to pose the same question to you as well, and especially under the difficult circumstances that you live under. Um, Basically under the fact that you are in a country at war. Schools, I don't think, I'm not quite sure how it is where there's not even enough room for young people to actually go get an education. Do you also have the circumstance where a young boy would be a preference to go to school, even after school? How is the inclusion of young women in the economy, if there even is a economy in Palestine at the moment?
Well, Julia, I think that about the preference of a boy to go to school, I think that was a very old thing that does not really exist maybe anymore in Palestine. Um, in general, I would say that as people, not only as Palestinian women, we're really into education. We have many people with very high education degrees, and we really pay a lot of attention to that. And growing up, I've been hearing stories from my father about his father and how obsessed he was with educating his kids, with even forcing them to go to schools, to go to universities, to get a degree, and how proud he was that his children are all educated, female and male children. So about the opportunities for the Palestinian women in the education, as I've mentioned in my previous answer, um, the obstacles and the restrictions and the limits that we face because of the occupation are the biggest issues that we have. Like, for example, when I graduated high school, I've wanted to go to a university in a different city. But going to that city means that I will have to move out from my family's place, uh, either like go rent a flat in that city and live alone, which is not very safe when you have an occupation. And the second option was to go to the university daily, to take a 1 hour road daily, which can include like 7 to 9 checkpoints where Israelis are pointing their guns in your face. And you could be randomly checked like once or twice, and sometimes it's on purpose because they want to keep you late from your class. So that's just a little like example about how is it like when you have to choose where you want to get education in Palestine. And also, even for me personally, because of all the movement restrictions that we have, because of the lack of the freedom of movement, when I wanted to pursue my studies and get a master degree, I've wanted to have a different experience, go to a different country, but all of my other like international friends could go home whenever they want, visit their family easily, and they could travel with like straight to their airport in their country. But for me, I had to go through a whole like different process of paperwork, flights, transits in different countries, and you have to plan the schedule, like to plan your plans according to the schedule of the borders controlled by your occupier. So it was not an easy trip. So all of these obstacles and all of these restrictions are not making it any easier for Palestinian women to shine as they can shine in the academic field. But still, we have many amazing examples of amazing Palestinian women with very high education degrees who've accomplished many amazing things in their life when it comes to the academic field and to education. And I've always felt really proud to be part of this nation, of these people, the Palestinian people, because of how proud they are of their education, how much they pay attention. And recently, in the genocide going on in Gaza, um, we've been noticing a pattern in the assassinations of many of our brilliant professors, doctors, teachers. They're trying to destroy the things that we value the most: education and educated people. Not to mention destroying the universities, targeting the schools, and destroying any chance that a Palestinian child in Gaza could have like a like a normal day at school, or like a normal life, or anything close to it. And even here in the West Bank today, because of the incursion happening in the West Bank, because of the escalation and the violent attacks and the destroying of the infrastructure in the West Bank, many couldn't go to their universities for classes. Many couldn't just have, a normal day, a quiet day where they could study for their exams. So I don't feel like, of course, it's more when it comes to women. I mean, for restrictions and limits, because our families are so protective,
Yeah.
because of the occupation and the culture. But also, even for men and young men, it's not also easy to get a proper education, a good quality of education here in Palestine.
Mm. Yeah, it's quite unfortunate. The part where when you said that, look, you guys are well educated, you are intelligent in your own field of study, but you are not even given the opportunity to shine and to give knowledge to the world because you are still fighting for a basic element of democracy in your country. I mean, there could be someone in Palestine right now who could actually assist in more of academics or in the worlds of science, but they're not even afforded that opportunity because they still need to pick up their own voices from being heard because of occupation. So it goes back to the fact that it's quite unfortunate that there's so much that we take for granted that you go through on a daily basis, mean. And it's very beautiful that you're sharing this with us so we can actually appreciate the little privileges that we have. So now I'm going to invite a few questions, like take questions from the floor. And there is one that we have that, so this question's of course for everyone, all three of you beautiful, intelligent young women. So the question is, given that the SDGs mainly seek to, among others, eradicate poverty, hunger, and inequality, which affect women the most, how will the international solidarity among women expedite the goals, to speed up the goals towards sustainable development in our solidarity, of course? I think, Selma, you can go first, and then we'll go in the order, of course.
Again, big question. Um, I think first of all, it can't be the task of only young women to make sure that
Mm,
the young women are included. Um, so it needs to be a task for everyone and for the whole society, and in every part of society we need to have this aspect with us. Um, and then I think um, I think international solidarity in general, but also international solidarity among women, is very important, because so Sai does research on student activism, which is a very powerful and important tool in our societies, and
mm,
um, we're giving out a new report this fall where we've interviewed students from 36 different countries, and what they point to is um, that they often so they experience a lot of different kinds of repression, but they also point to that repression often comes from the people closest to them. So from professors and teachers, but also from family and friends, and so on. So as a solution, they also point to like building community and building solidarity as a very
mm,
important tool um, to stop this repression of student activism and to strengthen student activism. So and I think building networks around you, like close to you, is very
mm.
important, but also building that international solidarity across borders, I think is very important. And now with Palestine, for example, I think it's so important that we actually that we show solidarity and engage and don't stop talking about it.
Wow.
Yeah, and that goes for many other things as well. So um, yeah, I don't know if I really answered the question,
Yeah.
but
So,
yeah.
so basically, it would be activism, gradual community. What do we, how would we put it? Per se, networks to solidify, to actually unite our common interest, so that we have one voice that speaks for all different voices. So we should keep on making the networks in different activism in our different countries, in the different networks that you, like your organization does, which I have been trying to work with as well. So I would understand from your point of view. So, Sonia, from your perspective, how would you relate that solidarity among women in different countries? How do we use our solidarity? How do we realize our goals using our solidarity? You're not audible yet.
Yes, humble
Sure.
now.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yes. I agree with Selma that this is a big question because from the international efforts and to expedite the SDG signal to, I think it's to end the poverty, hunger, and what is the last one that affects women the most. So I think from China's perspective, we always calls for the co-construction of the community with a shared future for mankind, and which means not only for males but also for females, the whole mankind. I think this is the idea and the principle we uphold to. Um, but look back to the history, it takes us many years to fight for the freedom that we have right now. So to realize a goal as big as it is, I think it takes time. Even though we can try hard and work hard together, it just takes time. And for practical actions, I think today's exchanges and conversation is a really good example. So people around the world needs to know, learn about each other's stories, background, what our other peoples are experiencing, and also we can talk about the good practices in our countries. Maybe we can make the good practices into another universal goodness in the future. So that is also what we fight for. Like we do not want contradictions, but we want conversations and cooperations with all around the world. So I think this is not only for women, but also for the goodness of the mankind. And also for the United Nations, I'm not really familiar with all the parts of the United Nations, but I heard before that there is the organization called, I'm not sure whether the name is right or not, Population Fund. And this organization aims to help females around the world to lower the death rate when they are giving birth and make sure their babies can grow up healthy and also lower the burden of the family to raise their children. I think these are all the practical actions that have been taken under the framework of United Nations to help realize the goals. So I think from the world perspective, I think similar actions are encouraged to help females in all the countries to live a better life. Yeah.
No, I hear you. From what I'm getting from you is that I won't be able to understand or help you if I don't have an idea of the journey that you have walked. It will be very difficult for me to, let's say, I'm a young woman from South Africa. When, let's say, for like an example, Selma I would then want to have some form of solidarity with Selma, but I have not had a conversation with Selma. We have not had as you understand, exchange. So for me, before we can even have some form of exchanging solidarity, I need to understand where she has walked. And I think it's important that as women around the world, we need to learn and we need to understand what women are going through in their respective countries so that we can better equip them and we can better assist and we can better actually assist them to eradicate the problems that they have. And then it will go to you as well, Tanzim, that in your sense, in your own perspective, how do you think our solidarity as young women can actually try to assist people in countries where poverty, hunger, inequality are still high, in particular women?
So, I think for me, like the most maybe important goals of the sustainable development would be actually zero hunger and peace and justice for all. And when we say we want to achieve justice and peace for all, we mean all, like all women. we stand with all women in the world without any double standards and without looking at the nationality, the race, the religion, or the color of the woman. And I don't think that we're there yet. I don't think that we've succeeded in this as women around the world because we've seen many like feminist organizations who took a stance when it comes to Ukraine and to Ukrainian women. But we didn't see the same when wars happened to Palestinian women. So I truly believe that the first step would be to look at all of us without seeing the differences. Let's look at what's the common thing between all of us is that we're women, we want peace, we want justice, we we're performing solidarity, and if we work together we can achieve this. But if we keep having the double standards of these international organizations or these organizations that claim to have uh, helped or supported women without looking at their color or nationality or religion, if we follow their steps we would go nowhere with this.
No, I can definitely agree with you because solidarity does not have a face. When you give out your solidarity to someone based on a common action of, let's say, for example, justice and peace for all in Palestine, or justice and peace for all women in the world. We don't have to now pinpoint a specific country that we would want to focus on. So I would believe that when we speak about how do we work as women to ensure that no child, no woman goes to bed hungry, no child or no woman is excluded from higher education, no child or woman is excluded from being into the labor market. It should not have some tick box that a woman has to actually now be able to tick all those boys. For the mere fact that you're a woman and are oppressed, organizations have to hand out a hand and a hand of assisting you. So it's very important what you have raised because we have seen that there are some organizations that have taken a posture on some issues but have turned a blind eye to some issues. So it is something that perhaps we need to put a bigger voice in it. It's something that ourselves have to not stop speaking on, to say that, look, when we fight for women, we fight for all women, regardless of color, which country or continent you're from, your background, whether you are from a privileged country or not, you are a woman. And I still maintain that there are women who, yes, we might feel she is from an educated background, she's privileged. We do not know what happens behind closed doors. There's a saying that says that you might, you might admire the roofing of a house, but you do not know what happens within the house. So when we fight for women, we fight for all women. So there is quite a question from Jeffrey Makanya, which says that can your guests comment on whether the BRICS countries have done enough to show support of the oppressed Palestinians by Israel and the West? It will be better if they would want to hear a view from all our guests. From the South African point of view, because we are a BRICS partner, I think that it's known. We have been quite vocal about the oppression of the Palestinians. We went to the International Court where we did station out a fight against Israel. uh, Look, sometimes it might not seem enough, but the little that every country has done, it's evident. So I think I'll give this to you, Sonia, as well, because you are part of the BRICS country. I think it will be only me and you. It will be fair enough to only be me and you. I would not want to place so much pressure on everyone else. But I think, Selma, you being a person from Norway, you are a country that's been vocal. So I think you would speak on that perspective, not as a BRICS partner, but from that perspective, being someone who is considered that being someone from Norway, it is surprising having the Norwegians speak, not quite surprising if you understand the history, but for some people, they find it quite surprising that a country like Norway, it's so vocal against the oppression in Palestine. I think that let's take it in that point of view. So Sonia, I'll give it to you first, being someone from China, part of BRICS. Do you think that the BRICS countries have done enough for oppressed women in Palestine by Israel and the West?
So this is also a question unexpected, but so as for so for from myself today, it is actually my first time to truly communicated with a sister in Palestine. Like I've never talked exchanged ideas like this before, so I do appreciate the opportunity today. And I think great countries. I know South Africa has done things to support, to voice support in the international community. And actually, China also has done things to show the support to Palestinian people. Just to quote, the event happens in this July. The Palestinian factions signed Beijing Declaration on Ending Division and Strengthening Palestinian National Unity. So I think this, because I'm not from the political desk, but I think like my personal perspective, I think this can be seen as a historical moment. I don't know whether this means the same for Tasame, but we think that this actually gathering these factions gathering in Beijing with the greater good of their nations in mind, and this is an important historical moment in the liberalization cause. And as China, we also commend the reconciliation efforts made by all the factions. And also, we have spoke about the support for Palestinian people's just cause of regaining their legitimate national rights. And China is always committed to a comprehensive, just, and lasting solution to the question of Palestine. And we support Palestine's full membership in the UN. And we also, before, has urged certain UN Security Council members not to lay obstacles to that end. We called for a more broad-based, more authoritative, and more effective international peace conference to work out a timetable and roadmap for the two-state solution. But we also think this process needs international support, like the cost for women. This cost cannot be done by only one or two countries. It also international communities focus. So I'm not sure whether this still answers the question.
Yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from, because look, for Palestine, the support can be to a certain extent. It is the activism, it's the voicing out, it's supporting the aid, is to giving out support where we can. But it will never be enough until there is a ceasefire. And we will definitely also give Tasme a part where she can actually give us from her point of view, being someone who's on the receiving end, so that we can perhaps understand, is it enough what we are doing, or what more can we do? But before we go to her, let's just hear from Selma on, it's quite interesting that Norway is so vocal about the oppression of Palestine from your side, because not being someone from a big country, I think from your perspective, it would be that, what have you done and how have you done it, and have you done enough according to the question?
Yeah, I think to the question of like how we all of us done enough? Like the answer is obviously no, because
Mm.
the war is still going on. The occupation has been going on for many, many years. So the answer is definitely no. And to like Norway's role, like yes, you're correct that we have been quite vocal, again compared to other countries, and this is also an argument that the Norwegian government likes to use. Like when they get critique, they're like, but we are doing more than other countries, and that's correct. But I think it's still not enough. Um, and we have done some things. For example, now Norway has recognized Palestine as a state, which we should have done a long time ago. But um, it's one step. But there are other things that we're not willing to do. For example, we have this big oil pension fund, where that, for example, invest money in international weapon industry. So I think we're like the Norwegian government has done some things, but there is still things they're not willing to do. And for me, I mean, I know the educational and higher education sector best. And we've had a big discussion here about academic boycott of Israeli higher education institutions, which we in SAI have been advocating for. And there again, I think that's one example where a lot of the institutions are saying, like,
Yeah.
we stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people, and we want like ceasefire, but
Yeah.
we won't go in for an academic boycott, for example,
Yeah.
which is something that has been like a demand that comes from the Palestinian higher education sector. So I think, um, yeah, if you really want to stand in solidarity, you need to also kind of
Mm.
listen to the demands that come from the people who knows the context the best.
The best. Yeah.
But I think this example also shows that we are making some
But
progress,
yeah.
because in the just some months ago, at least in Norway, the debate about academic boycott was very difficult, but now it is going a bit easier, and more institutions has actually gone in for an academic boycott. But
Yeah.
yes, I think the short answer is no, we're not doing enough.
Yeah. And it's quite admirable sometimes to stand here and say, look, we are trying, but it's not enough because of point one, two, and three. It shows that more needs to be done. And it shows that we're not in denial that we have not done enough and we need to do more. And that is how we actually achieve a goal, when we admit that, look, we have not done enough. We need to push harder. We need to make more boycotts. Look, the boycotts are working. People should stop going to Starbucks. The boycotts are working. We see the droppings in profit revenues. We see how a lot, when we boycott, there's a bit of resistance and then there's a bit of retraction, some way, somehow. The only thing that we still need to work firmly on is ensuring that on the bigger world spectrum, that Israel is boycotted in some parts. With the Olympic Games, it was quite unfortunate they took part when perhaps in our experience that Africa was banned when we were under an apartheid state. So it was more of a contradiction for us to see Israel taking part in the Olympic Games. But yeah, I do understand that being someone not from the BRICS country, your contribution would be through boycotts in the academic field. It will be boycotts in whatever pickets that you'll be doing. Something that we also do, also in our own organization, pickets, and we do marches, we do rallies. We have such dialogues as well. We write articles. There's nothing that is too little. Every little thing that we pick up in different countries comes into one big puzzle and it comes into one bigger voice. So, Tasme, being someone who's on the receiving end of this support, we acknowledge definitely it is not enough. But being someone who's on a receiving end, what do you think can still be done in the matter of solidarity among the BRICS countries and among countries that are allied to supporting Palestine to be a free state one day?
Well, first, Julia, I would say that as Palestinians, we highly appreciate all the support that we receive from the people and from the countries around the world. I mean, the Chinese support that we've got, the Norwegian recognition of the state of Palestine, and the amazing and impressive courage of South Africa to stand up against Israel in the ICJ. And what I mean is, this is certainly like something that means a lot to us. And it really warms our hearts to see that there are still people out there who are fighting not only for us, but for the real values that we all should be believing in, for freedom, for justice, for all. So to see this, it really makes us all like really more optimistic about the future. But is it enough? If you look at the Palestinians and you do not see a free Palestine, if you do not see that Palestinians have got justice for the more than 76 years of oppression, of occupation, of genocide, and if you look and you do not see a Palestinian independent, safe state, that means we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We've not done enough yet. And we must go on. We must expose the criminals. We must expose this terrorist state. Boycotting is a very important and powerful tool that has proven you know its impact in this war and in this genocide. So it's really important to boycott economically, boycott them politically, and even boycott them in the academic field. The criminal must never feel welcome in the international community. L- a criminal must never feel that
Yeah.
it's okay, they're still welcome into this world without getting their punishment, without giving justice to the victims of this criminal, of this oppressor. So it's highly appreciated what everyone is doing. People here are following and they really appreciate it, they're really happy with it. Is it enough? Unfortunately, no, it's not.
No, yeah. It is something that we still need to work on. I think having to hear from someone who's on the receiving end, having someone who appreciates the little that we do, there's still more that we need to do. There's still more that we need to capitalize on, such as the boycott, such as the I would use the word like pressure. You understand that when people know they're doing something that is outside the spectrum of democracy, they need to understand they are not welcomed in the environment where all of us preach of democracy, because we cannot say we are thriving for democracy or we are thriving for equal rights, we are thriving for the realization of human rights, but we have one person who's among us who keeps on oppressing other people. And I think this will be only attained and achieved with pressure, and pressure that should not be sugar coated, but pressure that is actually outright. Pressure such as boycotts, academic institutions. So I think, Tasme, it's something that we still need to work on. It is something that we need to be deliberate in all of our respective corners, professions, and also academic fields or institutions or organizations as well. So I'm just going to quickly try and couple the last two questions so that we're not running over time before I get penalized. So, and international instruments, I would like to put it like that. We have spoken about solidarity now. So let's touch on the different institutions, like progressive reforms that we can actually use into ensuring that we realize the SDGs. So the question is, what kind of progressive reforms should be considered in the UN, in the Bretton Woods institutions, and other key multilateral institutions in order for us to attain our realization of a sustainable development goal for women? I, for one, I would speak on one thing. Like, look, we need to perhaps have some kind of policy for menstrual rights for women, because look, it's not a choice for a young woman to go through their menstrual cycle every month. A menstrual cycle that takes them out of school, a cycle that takes them out of their jobs. Now, when they are out, they sometimes women lose time at work, girls lose time at school. So for me, I would believe that the UN perhaps would have to have a policy around some issues like this, a policy where a sanitary towel or a tampon has to be something that is free in all parts of the world, not just for the privileged, but for everyone. Because when we can have preventive measures for pregnancy, which is free in most of our countries, but something as basic as something as a health issue, I think it's something as basic as that. So from your point of views, what policies and what reforms do you think should be considered by the United Nations? I just spoke of something quite simple and quite basic. But coming from your different countries, I think there would be issues that would be more personal for you that you want to consider. For me, it would be the menstrual rights, of course, and also pronouncing that gender based violence is actually a pandemic. It's no longer an issue, a by the way issue. It is something that has to be declared a pandemic, and there needs to be a solution from the United Nations and other institutions on how do we tackle gender-based violence, because it is often not done by a stranger. It's done by someone we live with, it's someone we know, and it is done by people that we trust in some cases. So in your different perspective, how can we use these reforms in the United Nations and also in other institutions like the Bretton Woods, and for us to actually come to a point of attaining our goals as young women as well? I think I'll start with you, Selma.
Yes. First of all, I agree with what you said, and then I have to admit that like gender and equality policy is not my area of expertise, but I do work a lot with, as I already mentioned, with student rights, student activism, and students as human rights defenders, and I think policies regarding that is something that also affects women, because young women are really important in these student movements. And one thing, well, first of all, I think the UN, like you could say a lot about UN, and it definitely has its issues, but one important role I think the UN can play is actually reporting and documenting human rights violations that happen. For example, we have the UN Special Rapporteurs, and the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Defenders just did a report on young human rights defenders, for example. I think work like that is super important. And I would also like to see a UN resolution, particularly on students as human rights defenders, and yeah, kind of the issues that student activists and young human rights defenders face in particular.
I think it's quite important to have human rights defenders and also actually to start using such platforms. I think the UN actually can be a vessel of creating a network and a connection around the different young people who are human rights defenders so that they get to actually align properly so that their voices become louder. Because if I am Julia in South Africa, I'm all alone, I'm doing this work, but there's a Selma in Norway is also doing the work. But if our voices are together, it becomes a bit louder. I think they need to play their key role of being our our connectory, someone who connects the human rights defenders so that we actually can get to fast tracking realization of the SDGs. Sonia, from your point of view, how do you think we can actually use the UN and what should be considered in the UN in ensuring that we actually achieve the SDGs?
My thoughts are kind of similar as you just mentioned about the networking. So, as also Selma and Tasame just mentioned, that female does not have the opportunity to shine as they should have shined, and the females also need the networking to get the resources they need to develop or to shine. So I think UN, there are some funds and forum under the framework of UN, and they can be used for female leaders to network and find opportunities among each other to exchange ideas and see how to enhance the solidarity globally and find solutions or develop long-term plan to resolve the obstacles they have met. And as for the policies you have mentioned, I think what we've done in the past actually have laid some certain foundations for the future work. As far as I know, China has already opened projects under the framework of UN, especially for female leaders to support the capacity building of women in developing countries. So I think these kind of work, like we need more of this kind of work to better accelerate the process to form the gender equality.
I keep on forgetting that I'm muted and I start just talking, like I just go like, hey, hey, hey. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I definitely agree because I think we're generally all going to have the same sentiment that like, look, we do so much in our own corners and we know so little about one another. But the moment we network and the moment we conjoin one another, it becomes a big village of ideas, a big village of motivating one another, and also a big village that implements better. Because I tell you, it's way better when I have a Selma, I have a Sonia, and I have a Tasme around me to assist me rather than just being alone in my corner. Then you start getting a bit of demotivation. So I actually I'm quite impressed on the work that the Chinese have done with the UN and the policies that you're trying to eradicate as well. It's quite admirable. I'll take it to our last opinion, of course, for the day, Tasme. On your point of view, how do you think that the UN and other institutions in the international community can be used so that we can actually realize our goals as young women?
Well, first of all, I think this is a system that was built by the strong ones who won the war, and they've used it for years now to oppress the weak ones. And fooled all of us to think that, oh, we have a United Nations, we have a global organization, we can work all together towards the amazing values and goals we want to achieve. But I feel like this system is built to achieve what these countries want, what the strong countries want, not what the weak countries need actually. So, but if we wanna like enhance it, I would say we should start with strengthening the accountability and the monitoring of this system. Like, let's implement a stronger accountability mechanism and track the progress toward the sustainable development goals, and track the implementation of the UN resolutions and the Security Council resolutions, and ensure the the transparency and holding countries and institutions accountable for what they commit, you know. So I think these are, in my opinion, the most important things that we need to start with if we want to enhance the international system that we have.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you because look, we can't have institutions that say they speak for the minority, the oppressed, but in action, they sit on a table with the oppressors as well, where some countries do not account, some countries do not speak to say, look, why are you doing this? Why have you not done this? Why is your country still in this state? I actually would 100% agree with you to say that the UN is still it still has a lot to do in ensuring that women are safe in the world. Women are getting the rightful platform for them to address specific issues that affect them in their different counterparts in the world. Like, for example, how you raise it so differently from how Selma has raised it, how I have raised it, because we all are different women from different perspectives, diversified, but we all have our different challenges. And for you being a young woman who is still in a country that has no democracy, that literally has no basic human right that is offered to you, the UN has done you no justice. And the UN, in its institutions and in the mannerism that it operates, it still has a lot more to do for you. So, from my point of view, I definitely would understand what you are saying. And this is actually the part where I have to summarize and close everyone. But it's been lovely to have all of you ladies with us today. And I appreciate all of you coming here to speak on sensitive matters and on issues that are a bit personal to some of you. And for me, it was beautiful to converse with different women from different parts of the world so that we can actually have a better idea on how to better ourselves, and most importantly, in how do we work together in ensuring that we realize the goals that we set out to achieve, because women are the future, women are the now. Thank you so much for having us, guys, and thank you for having and actually making time to have this conversation with us. Thank you so much.